All right, guys, today we're gonna talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while here, and it's more of just a talking head. Feel free to minimize it. There's not gonna be any crazy editing or anything here. It's really discussion to get you guys' brain juices flowing, because today I wanna talk about brands that you can still trust going into 2022. At the risk of it sounding sponsored, I promise it's not. Hey, Jay. Jay. Jay.
What?
We got work to do.
Yeah, I'm playing World of Warships. Yeah. World of Warships is the free-to-play naval strategy game where you command the most iconic and famous warships from World War I and World War II, recreated with stunning detail and accuracy. Build your fleet while participating in various game types while upgrading your ship's arsenal along the way. New players who sign up using my link below will receive an exclusive starter pack to get you up and running quickly by receiving 7 days premium time, 1 million credits, 300 doubloons, and the Tier 5 premium ship, the Exeter.
So what are you guys waiting for? Start sinking ships with World of Warships by heading to the description below and getting your freebies. So first and foremost, I want to put this out there. This is not either an endorsement for a brand or an endorsement, whatever the opposite of an endorsement is for a brand. It's just the kind of our observations, because we get to deal with pretty much everything as it comes through here. So of course we formulate our own opinions that are both subjective and objective. And you're gonna find that some of what I'm gonna say might contradict what other content creators say, because again, this is an opinion piece at this point. What kind of triggered this was some of the memes going around with different brands, which are hilarious, they're funny, and more often than not, they're true. But I was also kind of taking a look at Steve's disappointment tour for 2021. And although I don't always agree with Steve, in fact, I feel like I disagree with him more than I agree with him sometimes, I agreed a lot with the stuff that was on there, because it felt like every single launch of 2021 made its way on that t-shirt. So I want to kind of talk about that, because more often than not, what you'll find is a brand will do something and then it will affect its reputation, and then people will kind of stay away from that brand forever. And I want to give you guys some things to think about when it comes to brands to trust, what to look for, when you should distrust a brand and be willing to take a chance on them. So first and foremost, if you are the kind of person that is gonna say, if a brand is ever messed up, I am never going to shop with that brand again, well then you have to stop buying anything, period, ever for the rest of your life. Every single manufacturer, every single brand, every single product has had its problems. Every single product has had warranty issues. Every single car, computer, keyboard, mouse, hammers have all had warranty issues, where the failure rate, whether it's an acceptable rate or not, has at some point failed. Everything ever created since the beginning of time has had its problems. So if you're that kind of person, then you might as well just click off this video and go hide in the corner and never move again, because if you do anything other than that, then you're kind of a hypocrite. Second of all, it's not whether or not a brand has had a problem, it's how brands have responded to, not responded to, handled or not handled those problems that determine a brand's reputation. A company can make great products for 10 years, have one bad launch or one bad product, handle it poorly, and then destroy their reputation for the next 10 years. It's true. That is just absolute. People remember the negatives. People rarely remember the positives. It's the same reason why if you go and read Amazon reviews and such, more often than not, you'll find people are more implied to go and leave a negative review than a positive one, because the positive review or the positive experience is expected when you buy something. So more often than not, people will go, and I said that a lot in this sentence or this video so far, more often than not, but it's kind of the truth. People get left with bad taste in their mouth with a bad product or a bad experience. Then they're more likely to go and leave a negative review. So that's why often it'll seem like lots of negatives on something and very few positives. Anyway, moving on. Brands that I feel like you can still trust in 2022. Top of my list is still EVGA, even though they've more recently had an issue with the 3090 cards, obviously, with the VRMs failing because of an identified poor solder joint in the VRM on the first runs of RTX 3090 for the Win 3 cards. That showed that reared its ugly head with New World and then other demanding games. Putting any sort of extreme load for long periods of time on that graphics card could cause that solder joint to fail. And it's not just New World. World of Warships was even doing it with its recent overhaul of its graphics engine, putting in extreme. It's funny because a lot of times people think high FPS is what strains a video card, and that's not true. It's how is the scene being rendered? How is it being drawn? If it's kind of poorly encoded in the way that it's supposed to utilize the graphics card, that could put a high strain and still get low FPS. So don't confuse high FPS with strain. They're not directly relatable. But anyway, other games that were extremely demanding had also shown that to be an issue. So for a while there, the memes really sort of stacked up against EVGA. But if you go and look at the history, EVGA has had some issues in the past with other versions of their graphics cards. The 1080 Ti for the win. Also, it wasn't for the win 3 at the time, I think it was just called for the win. Had an issue where one of their VRMs was apparently, like the thermal pads weren't making contact, or there weren't thermal pads at all with their VRMs. VRMs were getting hot, and in some instances were failing, which was leading to a black screen issue, fans going to 100%, and then anytime you would load 3D, so the card would work fine at the desktop. You load a game or something, it would go 3D, or go black screen, fans go 100%, it turns off. EVGA also warrantied those cards, fixed them, got them replaced. It was a different time with graphics cards though versus the 3090 where you still had 1080s that were available and they were able to warranty them quickly and get them out there. They made a public press release about the problem, identified the problem, were transparent with the problem, explained what the problem was and what they were doing about it. The same thing they did with the For the Win 3090. Now that took a little bit longer because it took time for them to get the cards back, figure out what was happening. Remember, they're not gonna just put out a statement saying, oh, so-and-so on Reddit said this is happening, here's what we're doing. No, they have to wait for those products to come back, do their own internal testing, identify the problem, identify a fix, and then talk about it. Time has moved on, revisions of that card have been made, EVGA is still putting out more 30 series RTX cards than any other brand on the planet right now, and their RMA issues have certainly dropped. And although there are still RMAs, ask anyone that's dealt with EVGA's RMA process and you'll understand why there are people like myself who've been shopping with EVGA for 22 years and will continue to be fairly loyal to that brand as long as they continue to put out great products and warranty them the way that's expected. Gigabyte is an example of a brand that you still can't trust. Gigabyte is still not accepting responsibility for the power supply issues that they've had, the exploding power supply issues that has been documented out there widely now and easily recreated. That's a brand that even though its power supply market is a small segment of what they actually do regarding motherboards and graphics cards, it's the way the brand handles that problem that tells you I cannot trust this brand. Because if something happens in somewhere else, then you can just pretty much guarantee that that brand's gonna probably ghost you. And then the way they were completely mums the word regarding their the hack that they dealt with regarding the ransomware on their warranty server that should speak volumes of the fact that they still never said anything. And there are people to this day that still have not gotten their products warranted that they had already sent to EVG or to Gigabyte. Gigabyte lost them in the system because the system got taken over and wiped, and then now people are just out money, out product, and Gigabyte's like, oh, sorry, sucks. You know, they're not even saying sorry sucks, they're just not even responding to you anymore. So Gigabyte's a brand that, as far as I'm concerned, can drop off the face of the planet, and I wouldn't care less. Asus, let's talk about Asus. A brand that has definitely had its fair share of warranty problems in the past, but still, in my opinion, is worthy of taking a chance with. Now, I know some people right now are probably mad because of the recent capacitor issue and the way that Asus has sort of handled some of that, and I'm gonna address that right now. If you guys are aware, the Z690 Hero motherboard, a $600 motherboard, had a manufacturing snafu where like 3 levels of verification were somehow overridden and a ton of motherboards were sent out with the memory capacitor installed backwards on the memory VRM, which was causing boards to fail left and right. Everything as minor as getting a trouble code that won't post, all the way to potential fire hazard. And Asus responded to that fairly quickly. We actually did 3 videos about that, and within 4 days of us mentioning it because of BuildZoid talking about it, and Reddit talking about it, they put out a statement. What made a lot of people upset is the fact that they were trying to get their boards replaced with Asus, and Asus ultimately ended up having to go and fall back on the, if you're still in the return period with your merchant, return the motherboard, get a full refund. If you're outside of that, they were offering buyback. Apparently that's evolved a little bit to, I guess, depending on what region you're in, not all regions. This is the problem with major companies like Asus or Corsair or any of them that have, you know, they deal with like the 77, I don't remember what they're called. It's like the Euro Big 8, and then you've got Australia, and you've got Asia, and you've got North America, and you got all that. When you start dealing with some of these sub markets that maybe don't have the same level of interaction that the main corporate offices do, sometimes you get a less than desirable experience where They may not be as updated as what the process is for handling sort of this stuff, and you get some really obscure responses, which people dealt with Asus. But the problem is that Asus was unable to provide boards. Like, there were more boards with the problem than they had replacements for. And because of the manufacturing issues that we all know are still ongoing, their ultimate response was like, take your board back, get your money back. If you can't, we'll buy it back from you. And I'm okay with that response, because I'm very well aware of what the manufacturing capacities are right now and what the challenges are trying to replace that many boards. Initially, they said they identified a small subset. I think that ended up being bigger than they anticipated, especially with the fact that more boards were coming back than they had replacements for, which is why the buyback program started. That, to me, shows dedication to the customer in that, hey, we've acknowledged this, we understand there's a problem here, here's what we're doing about it. That's so far above and beyond something like Gigabyte was doing. And that's why I put those two side by side, because I wanted to show you a compare and contrast of a company that, although people are still upset with, doing the right thing versus a company that's just completely ghosting you and does not care about you as a consumer. They care about their bottom line, their bottom dollar, and that's it. And they're going to stay completely quiet about it. Asus is a brand that I would still trust because of the way they've handled this capacitor problem. They make solid products. Asus arguably puts out more motherboards than just about any other motherboard manufacturer out there, more SKUs, and the fact that they're able to stay ahead of this type of problem for the most part and offer any sort of reconciliation shows that they're dedicated to the public. And I know that people are gonna be like, Jay, you're such a fanboy. Nope, this is speaking on consumer level. Your emails, your messages, those that have been forwarding me their mail strings of here's what their communication was like with Asus. I've had them sent to me in positive light. I've had them sent to me in negative light. And at the end of the day, no company's perfect. Problems are still gonna happen even in the RMA processes. So it's one of those things where you might completely disagree with me on that, but this is what my personal opinion is on that. Companies like Corsair, they're massive. They have huge portfolios. They've got cooling, HydroX, they've got AIOs, they've got memory, they've got cases, power supplies, peripherals. There's just so much happening with a company like that. And it's rare that you hear about something truly going bad with Corsair's products, let alone bad RMA processes. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to show you here is that even though we are in a society and an economy right now where brands are more than happy to put out hot mess garbage because it's selling, at the risk of their reputation when we come out the other end of this. There is another end of what we're experiencing right now. Whether we're in the middle of this tunnel, just entering this tunnel, or towards the end of this tunnel, things are going to return to normal at some point. And although brands are capitalizing on this now by just putting out garbage, knowing it will sell, like Nvidia's 3050 and the, okay, maybe that's not completely fair. It's still a decent card. It's better than the 6500 XT. AMD's 6500 XT is a perfect example of a cash grab. People are gonna remember this. They're gonna remember the brands that capitalized. They're gonna remember the brands that took advantage of their customers versus those brands that were willing to stay with their scruples and the morals during all of this. An example of a brand that could have done better. NZXT's H1. The H1 fire issues that started back in, what was it, late 2020, early 2021, should have never had to be leaned on as hard as they were with outlets like, again, BuildZoid, Gamers Nexus, and there's kind of a coalition there, if you haven't noticed. Take it as you will. I mean, some brands, some content creators really like to focus on negatives. And we try to balance ourselves to talk about positives and negatives and not be surprised when a positive happens. We just kind of like, here's our experience and here's what it is. That one should never had to go the lengths that it did before it turned into a recall. Again, anything that can create fire is a problem. And NZXT, they're friends of ours. Their brand is a sponsor of ours. However, our dedication and our loyalty is to you, the consumer. And when things need to be mentioned, we mention them. But it's one of those that's like, I feel like NZXT is on this kind of a weird like scale right now. It's like, oh, are they gonna earn it or are they gonna lose it? Like, what are they doing right now? They really feel like they're kind of teetering on this edge. And I really hope that they make all the changes and requirements that are necessary to move forward with a positive light and retain the brand loyalty that I feel like they've earned from a lot of people. But they're on the other end where I said, you can make great products for 10 years, mess up, and the way you handle it affects your reputation. I think people are in that wait and see part because they're on the other half of that spectrum I just talked about right now. Brands that I feel like you can... Nvidia, unfortunately, we've known Nvidia, it's the big green machine, not because their color's green, but it's the money-making machine. Huge investors, huge publicly traded company, part of the S&P 500. They have a lot of people they answer to, and you as the consumer are not it. Nvidia can put out a turd and people would still buy it. It's unfortunate. I wish it were like the early days when Nvidia was putting out truly innovative stuff. And I know right now, as someone in Nvidia would be triggered by the fact that I said that they're not putting out truly innovative stuff in the PC space. RTX, ray tracing, it's cool. The fact that we can do it in real time, ray tracing is not new. Obviously, ray tracing itself isn't innovative. Seeing it in games at real time, real time ray tracing is big. DLSS to me, that's innovative. That's awesome. But it's just less exciting because they've turned into such a big monster of this, like the business philosophy side of the company is so contrast from like the products that they're putting out. It's like great products that you hate to support because the company itself sort of sucks. Just like Apple. Great products, if that's the spectrum you're looking for the laptops, the tablets, the phones. Great product by just a company, which is kind of where Nvidia is. AMD has kind of been the opposite. A much better philosophy company for the gamer, but their products have just lacked compared to Intel and Nvidia, which is changing now because now that Ryzen has become so popular, now you want to adopt AMD. More people have adopted AMD than ever. We're all AMD here in the studio now. But it's one of those things where like the latest 6500 XT thing has kind of shown like, oh, y'all aren't quite as righteous as you think you are if you're gonna sell this hot mess and have people expect it to be a decent, product. But overall, AMD is still a product that you could believe in, trust in. Phil's been using the 6900 XT on his system now. He replaced the 3080 with it, and he's been happy. I mean, it's not been as powerful in certain games like Control and stuff, which really lean on DLSS and ray tracing. But he said it's been smooth and smoother than the 3080. I mean, obviously, it's faster than the 3080 in terms of just straight up rasterization performance. But again, that's where we are now in 2022, where AMD is caught up and is now like really earning your business and your trust, which if we did this video 5 years ago, I would say do not trust AMD in terms of performance. If that's all you can afford, it gets you something. But that's how much things have changed. But at the end of the day, you're the consumer. It's your money that speaks. It's your money that talks. Don't let brands create garbage that you're willing to buy, because all that does is set a precedent for the future. If they put out garbage today and you're willing to buy it, garbage is the new baseline. And you can expect a regression in terms of the product and the advancement and the value if we're willing to continue buying actual steamy piles of dog shit and they think we're happy about it. I know you're thinking right now, what choice do you have? Right now, not so much, but just remember in the future, being vocal about it is important. And you may not think that they're listening, but trust me, they are. And you may feel like nothing's changing, but this is the type of process that takes a while. And where we come out the end of this tunnel is going to determine where we go from here. And I just want to make sure that you guys remember that consumer, you have all the power. There it is. I just wanted to kind of put out this talking head video. I want to kind of get this off my chest because it's just something that's been weighing on me, and I wanted to at least tell you guys like, hey, there's still good brands out there. There's still brands out there that you might want to be leery of. Like we still haven't worked with MSI since their own internal scalping stuff. Some of the products that were coming out of MSI were just terrible. BIOS were terrible. We might look into trying out some of the products again to see, how they are, because we don't do permanent, boycotts around here of products when it's a bad business practice. Thermaltake's a different story. That was personal, and besides, they're still garbage as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, moving forward here, what brands do you still trust in 2022, and what brand has absolutely guaranteed you will never buy from them again? Sound off in the comments below with your little story about why either they've earned your trust or have earned your hate forever. Sound off down below, guys. We'll read the comments and pin and favorite the best ones. We'll see you guys in the next one.